Welcome to Thalira Tales, where stories bloom in silence, carrying emotion, mystery, and hidden truth. Step in and let the tale unfold.
You can get the check. After all, it's not for my baby's party, is it? As our daughter's welcome to the world party wound down, my husband tried to push the bill onto me, but I just sat there, serenely. Ethan looked flustered, glancing around nervously. The eyes of his parents, our relatives, and even his colleagues from work all turned to me. But there was one thing they didn't know. I knew everything. I knew my husband was having an affair with his first love, and that he had secretly siphoned tens of thousands of dollars from our joint savings to pay for her hospital bills. And this lavishly decorated party wasn't a celebration for my daughter Lily. It was the stage for my revenge, a place where I would rip his hypocritical mask off in front of everyone. How did this woman break free from a toxic marriage and achieve her triumphant revenge? Hit subscribe and like, and let's dive into today's story, brought to you by Twilight Happy Endings. A throbbing headache had been hounding me all afternoon, making it impossible to focus on the reports piled on my desk. After getting permission from my manager, I left work early, hailing a cab through the torrential downpour. When I got home, the familiar silence greeted me. Ethan, a project manager at a commercial real estate firm, was never home at this hour. I dragged my exhausted body inside and kicked off my shoes. I was about to go straight to the bedroom to rest when I paused outside his home office. The door was slightly ajar. On the desk, I saw a cold cup of coffee and an ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts. But what struck me as odd was that his MacBook screen was brightly lit. Ethan was so meticulous he'd nag me about the electricity bill. He almost never forgot to shut down his computer or put it to sleep before leaving. I stepped into the room, intending to press the power button, when my eyes drifted to the bottom right of the screen. The iMessage app was open. Normally, I never checked my husband's phone or computer. I believed trust was the foundation of a marriage. But today, there was a notification bubble on a hidden chat, a feature that required a passcode to unlock. The woman's intuition I'd suppressed for the 6 months of my pregnancy began to scream. I pulled out the chair, sat down, and placed my hand on the trackpad, clicking the lock icon. The system prompted for a PIN. After a moment's thought, I remembered Ethan's habit of using family birthdays. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. Our wedding anniversary. Also wrong. On the third try, I recalled his unusually close relationship with his mother. I combined her birth year with his, and the screen unlocked, revealing the secret chat. A short name appeared. Chloe. The last message, sent just 10 minutes ago, hit me like a physical blow. Ethan, thank you so much for taking the morning off to come to the OBGYN with me. The doctor said the baby is growing strong and healthy. It was so amazing when he kicked in the car. Below it was Ethan's reply. Glad to hear the baby's healthy. Get some rest. Something urgent came up at work, so I had to stop by the office for a bit. I'll call you tonight. I sat frozen in the chair. The sound of the rain outside faded, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears. My husband had just been to a prenatal appointment with another woman, and her baby had kicked. At that moment, I felt a flutter in my own belly as my 6-month-old daughter moved. 2 lives, 2 women, and 1 man. The truth was so brutal and raw, it left no room for denial. My hands grew cold, but my mind became terrifyingly clear. I scrolled up, determined to read every word of their history. Their conversation began 3 months ago, when I was in my first trimester, suffering from debilitating morning sickness. As I read, the pieces clicked into place. Chloe wasn't a stranger. She was Ethan's college sweetheart. He had once mentioned her in passing, dismissing it as a young romance that ended because they just weren't compatible. But they had never truly cut ties. 3 months ago, Chloe had reached out to him, complaining about her miserable life. She had just finalized her divorce, and to make matters worse, she discovered she was pregnant. Her ex-husband claimed the child wasn't his and had kicked her out. My husband had extended a helping hand during her loneliest moment. The first few messages were just words of comfort and encouragement, but soon, the tone changed completely. Ethan. Don't worry, Chloe. I won't let you and the baby suffer. I'll take care of everything. You just focus on staying healthy. I'll handle the rest. Chloe, I feel so guilty, Ethan. I don't want to ruin your family with Clara. I'm so scared. My husband was quick to reassure her. Our marriage has been on the rocks for a long time. Clara is a cold, work-obsessed person. You're the most important person in my life, Chloe. When the baby is born, I promise I'll make you and our child officially mine. You're the most important person in my life. The words made a wave of nausea rise from my stomach. I clamped a hand over my mouth, barely holding it back. During the very same nights I was sleepless, struggling to keep down food to protect our child, my husband was using the cruelest words to diminish me while winning the heart of his mistress. He was willing to raise another man's child while viewing his own wife, carrying his own blood, as an obstacle to be removed. It didn't stop there. I examined the screenshots of bank transfers they had sent each other. Ethan had a separate savings account at a different bank where he kept his quarterly bonuses. I knew the account existed, but since I was financially independent myself and believed spouses needed their own space, I never pried. But that private money was flowing directly to a third party. In March, Ethan had sent Chloe $1,000 with the message, "Use this to buy some healthy groceries. Take care of yourself." In April, he sent $2,500. "Find a secure apartment in a good complex. I'll cover the rent." In May, another $1,500 with a note, "For maternity clothes and other essentials." I did a quick mental calculation. In just 3 months, my husband had sent his college ex a total of $20,000. A lump of sorrow formed in my throat, making it hard to breathe. Just last week, Ethan and I had discussed withdrawing $5,000 from our joint savings account for a high-end stroller, nursery furniture, and to prepay our hospital deductible. At the time, Ethan had frowned with a calculating look. "The economy is tough right now, Clara. Let's be reasonable. We can get a used stroller from my sister. We're about to be parents. We need to learn to budget and save." I had agreed without a single complaint, thinking he was being a responsible, forward-thinking husband. But that same responsible husband was throwing around 20 grand for his mistress without batting an eye. In a conversation from just the day before, Chloe asked with feigned concern, "My due date is getting close. What are you going to do about Clara?" Ethan's reply was ice cold. "I have a plan to handle her. I'm looking for an excuse to move out soon. You don't need to worry about it." Her. That one casual word. His legal wife, carrying his own flesh and blood, was just a her to be handled. I rushed to the bathroom and threw up everything I'd had for lunch. As I retched, tears streamed down my face, and my throat burned. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at the haggard woman in the mirror. Swollen eyes, messy hair, and a 6-month baby bump. I wept silently, mourning my own naivety and foolish devotion over our 3-year marriage. I had given my youth and my heart to a hypocrite and a piece of trash. But strangely, the despair lasted exactly 15 minutes. As I looked down at my belly and felt the gentle movement of my child, my mind became preternaturally calm. I dried my face and walked back to the office. I wasn't going to scream, or call and confront him, or throw his things onto the lawn. Those were things women who wanted to save their marriage did. For me, the moment he had so brutally trampled the boundaries of respect, this marriage was no longer worth saving. I took out my phone and opened the camera. One by one, I meticulously photographed every conversation and every bank transfer. After I was done, to prevent him from claiming they were doctored photos, I recorded a seamless video, scrolling from the very beginning of the chat to the end. Next, I opened an incognito browser tab, logged into my personal email, and sent all the evidence I had just collected to a secret email address only I had access to. Once finished, I carefully closed the iMessage window, cleared the browser history, and returned the computer screen to the exact state it was in when I first walked in. I turned off the office light, went to the bedroom, changed into my pajamas, and lay down on the bed. I closed my eyes. Starting tomorrow, I would begin a new performance. I would play the part of the happiest wife in the world until I could end this tragedy on my own terms. A month had passed since that fateful, rainy day. Now 7 months pregnant, my body felt heavy and unwieldy. Ethan continued to play the role of the perfect husband to a T. Every day, he'd come home from work with takeout from my favorite organic deli or a bag full of fresh fruit. As soon as he walked through the door, he would lovingly ask how I and the baby were doing. Clara, I picked up that organic chicken soup you like. Eat it while it's hot. Want me to grab you a bowl? I would smile, take the bag from his hand, and try my best to keep my voice steady. Thank you. Work must be really stressful lately, huh? Ethan would sigh, rubbing his neck as he complained about difficult contractors and demanding clients. His acting was so convincing that if I hadn't seen those messages myself, I would have firmly believed he was breaking his back for our family. I took slow spoonfuls of the soup, looking him straight in the eye and nodding sympathetically. The food tasted like ash, but I forced myself to swallow every bite to provide enough nutrients for the baby. The next morning, taking advantage of some free time, I went out to visit the office of Miss Davis. She was a sharp, highly rated attorney who specialized in divorce and asset division. As soon as I entered her office, I placed a neatly printed stack of documents on her desk. It contained everything: the text screenshots, the video of the secret chat, and a full printout of the bank statements showing the $20,000 trail from Ethan's bonus account to Chloe's. Miss Davis flipped through the pages, her eyes widening with surprise. In my 15 years of doing this, she said, looking up at me, I've seen many wives sit in that chair crying their eyes out over a cheating husband. But you are the first to come in so calm and with such systematically collected evidence. What are your terms for the divorce, Clara? I folded my hands on her desk and stated my conditions clearly. I want full custody of my child. Regarding our assets, the condo is in both our names, so I demand half of its equity. I want our joint savings account frozen immediately, so he can't touch it. And the $20,000 he gave to his mistress was marital property. I want the court to order him to return my half $10,000 directly to me. Miss Davis nodded in agreement. She advised me on the legal process and how to protect my rights during the proceedings. Most importantly, she warned me not to tip him off or give him a chance to hide assets. Act completely normal, she advised. Don't give him any reason to suspect you know. Leaving her office, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The legal battle was in a professional's hands. All I had to do now was protect my health and prepare to shatter the last of their smug delusions. That weekend, Ethan said he had a late dinner with an important out-of-town investor. I knew exactly who that investor was. Lying in bed, I found Chloe's number, which I had secretly jotted down and added her as a contact. Then, I sent her a message on Facebook Messenger. She accepted the message request almost immediately, likely curious as to why her lover's wife was reaching out. I didn't plan on making her wait. I sent the first message, polite but direct. Hello, Chloe. This is Clara, Ethan's wife. I think it's time the three of us had an honest conversation. Not even 5 seconds passed before the typing bubble appeared. Chloe responded at lightning speed, as if she had a script prepared for this very situation. Hi, Clara. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Ethan and I are just old friends from college. We have nothing to hide, and I certainly haven't done anything to wrong you. I let out a dry laugh in the empty bedroom. Women who steal other people's husbands always love to wrap themselves in the pristine packaging of old college friends. I had no intention of arguing or trading insults. A smart woman doesn't waste her time on such pointless endeavors. I opened my photo gallery and selected the screenshot of the $2,500 Zelle transfer from Ethan to Chloe. The names were clearly visible. I hit send and added a short message. That's one expensive friendship. Is it normal for friends to cover each other's rent and maternity clothes? $20,000 in 3 months. That's some incredibly deep platonic bond you two have. After that message, my phone screen went completely silent. The read receipt appeared clearly below the photo, but no reply ever came. Chloe's silence was the most obvious admission of her guilt, the humiliation one feels when their true face is exposed. She never would have dreamed that the wife she thought was an idiot had meticulously tracked every single dollar. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the nightstand. The first silent battle was over in an instant, but its effect was absolute. I had shattered her hypocritical facade. I didn't care if she ran crying to Ethan tonight. The final act of this play had already been written by me. All they had left to do was slowly savor the bitter fruit they had grown. The next morning, I woke up feeling surprisingly refreshed. I checked my phone and saw a new text message from an unknown number. Because my Messenger app was set to block unknown senders, Chloe had resorted to a standard SMS to continue her performance. It seemed she couldn't bear being caught red-handed without offering some kind of excuse. I opened the message. It was a long, rambling text, designed to paint herself as a pitiful victim. Clara, if I've caused you any pain, I am truly sorry. But I didn't know Ethan was still living with you. He told me your relationship was over and you were filing for divorce soon. He said you didn't love him anymore. The first text made me scoff. The classic lies of a cheating man and the pathetically foolish excuses of the other woman. The second text detailed her sob story. I just got divorced, and I was in a terrible situation. My baby was abandoned by his father, and I was kicked out of my house. Then Ethan showed up and helped us. I'm just a vulnerable woman who needed someone to lean on. I think of that money as a loan. I plan to pay it all back when I'm back on my feet. I truly never wanted to ruin your family. The third text was an appeal for sympathy. You're pregnant too, Clara, so I hope you can understand my situation as a soon-to-be mother. Please don't blow this out of proportion. What did my unborn baby ever do? Once the baby is born, I promise I'll step away quietly and give Ethan back to you. After reading all 3 messages, I felt nothing but pity for this woman. She had the courage to commit the act, but lacked the courage to take responsibility. She was using her unborn child as a shield to hide her own greed, blaming everything on my husband's lies while conveniently ignoring her own calculated actions. Instead of getting angry, calling her, or sending a long rebuttal, I chose complete silence. I deleted all 3 messages from my phone. A pregnant woman didn't need to waste her mental energy on such trash. Her apology couldn't change reality, and whether she stepped away or gave my husband back was no longer my concern. I don't take back trash that someone else has already dragged through the mud. My sole focus now was on creating a stable future for my soon-to-be-born daughter. All my efforts were directed only toward myself and the child growing inside me. At 9 months pregnant, my due date was just a week away. My body felt like it was at its absolute limit. My ankles were swollen, and even walking to the kitchen was a struggle. I started my maternity leave and rested at home. I prepared everything for the baby's arrival myself. Ethan, using the excuse of end-of-year deadlines and, I knew, the need to care for his mistress, whose due date was also approaching, was barely home. I ordered diapers on Amazon, washed the tiny onesies, and folded them neatly into a pink nursery basket. As I sat on the sofa, folding a piece of clothing no bigger than my palm, I found myself thinking about the day we first met. 4 years ago, a mutual friend had set us up. At our first meeting in a local coffee shop, he wore a crisp button-down and spoke in a calm, gentle voice. I especially remembered how clean and neat his hands were. Throughout our date, he was incredibly considerate, pulling out my chair, getting my coffee, and asking genuinely about my career and hobbies. He once told me, "Taking care of people is just how I'm wired. Seeing the person I love happy gives me peace of mind." Drawn in by that false warmth and sense of security, I, who only ever wanted a normal, loving family, fell for him completely. And when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. On our wedding day, as he looked at me at the altar, his eyes seemed filled with absolute devotion. I thought I had found the most dependable partner in the world. But time was the most ruthless of reveals. It stripped away the polished exterior and laid bare a person's selfish nature. The hands that had pulled out my chair were now using our family's money to support another woman, and the eyes that had looked at me with love were now filled with cold calculation. A sharp kick in my ribs brought me back to the present. My daughter was reacting to the outside world. I placed a hand on my belly, gently stroking it to soothe her. As the momentary pain subsided, a steely resolve settled in my chest. Marrying him was a mistake, but this child was a precious gift I wouldn't trade for anything. I made a promise to myself. No matter what difficulties lay ahead, even if it cost me everything, I would protect and raise this child on my own. From that moment on, I was no longer Ethan's dutiful wife. I was a strong mother, ready to reclaim a peaceful life for my daughter. The contractions started early on a Wednesday morning, during my 39th week. My abdomen tightened, and waves of pain radiated from my lower back. I gritted my teeth, reached over to turn on the bedside lamp, and shook Ethan awake. He stumbled out of bed, grabbed the pink hospital bag I had packed weeks ago, and clumsily helped me into the car to drive to the hospital. The labor and delivery ward was a blur of monitors and nurses. I gripped the cold metal bead rails, my hospital gown soaked with sweat. Ethan stayed by my side, holding my hand and whispering, "You can do it, babe. I'm right here with you." Seeing his worried face, the Clara from 3 months ago might have shed tears of gratitude. But the Clara of today could only manage a bitter, internal laugh. The man deserved an Oscar. It was no wonder both Chloe and I had fallen for his act so easily. At 7:00 a.m., our daughter's first cry echoed through the delivery room. The nurse wrapped the tiny red baby in a striped swaddle and placed her on my chest. Feeling the warmth of that small life, my heart seemed to melt, and all my exhaustion vanished. I named her Lily. A simple name, but one that held my hope for her to have a beautiful, peaceful life. It was also a vow. No matter what storms came, her mother would carry the burden and give her a safe harbor. When a nurse wheeled me and Lily into the recovery room, Ethan rushed over. His eyes were glistening with tears as he took my hand, kissed my forehead, and repeatedly told me how amazing I was. A passing nurse smiled warmly. "You're very lucky," she said. "It's wonderful to see a husband so devoted to his wife and new baby." I simply smiled politely in response. Lying in the hospital bed, I watched the final scene of his model father performance. He played the part flawlessly, but I, his sole audience member, already held the script for the finale. 2 days later, I was discharged. My mother, who lived a few hours away in the suburbs, drove up to help me with my postpartum recovery. Seeing her walk in with coolers full of homemade casseroles, fresh vegetables from her garden, and organic groceries, I felt my eyes well up. My mom bustled around, cleaning the condo, cooking, and rocking her new granddaughter. Holding Lily, she told me, "A new mother needs to heal. You just rest. Seeing how much Ethan steps up for you, and the baby makes me so happy. Your dad is holding down the fort at home, so I can stay here for a few weeks to help. Don't worry about a thing." At night, my mother would take the baby monitor, so I could get a few uninterrupted hours of sleep. Ethan was on his best behavior. He'd come home from work and immediately roll up his sleeves to help my mom in the kitchen or take out the trash. Watching my aging mother work so hard to care for me, I wanted to bury my face in her shoulder and cry. I wanted to tell her the ugly truth about the son-in-law she praised so highly. But I bit my tongue. My mother had high blood pressure and had spent her life wishing for me to have a happy, stable home. If she learned the truth now, while I was recovering, it would break her heart and ruin her health. I couldn't put that burden on her. My divorce plan remained my secret alone. I would wait, silently, for the perfect moment. Time flew, and soon Lily was approaching 3 months old. One Saturday evening, after dinner, Ethan was watching TV in the living room when he suddenly suggested we throw a "Welcome to the World" party for Lily like a delayed sip and see. He grabbed his laptop and excitedly started planning. He insisted it had to be a grand event, saying he wanted to reserve a private room at the most exclusive country club in the area. The guest list would include both our parents, extended family, his colleagues, and even some important firm partners. Hearing this, I frowned and objected. I told him Lily was only 3 months old, and it was risky to take her to a crowded venue during flu season. Besides, a party at a country club would be ridiculously expensive, and with the ongoing costs of diapers, formula, and daycare, we shouldn't be blowing our budget. Ethan immediately waved his hand, dismissing my concerns. "This party is an important milestone. We can't just do a backyard BBQ. All the partners at my firm throw big events. If we do something cheap, people will talk. Plus, it's a great networking opportunity to invite clients. This isn't just about Lily, it's about maintaining our image. You just pick out a nice dress and take care of the baby. I'll handle the venue and the catering. Don't worry about the money." His excessive enthusiasm set off alarm bells in my head. The man who used to track our grocery budget down to the dollar now wanted to throw an extravagant country club gala. That night, after Ethan started snoring, I slipped out of bed, took his phone, entered his passcode, and opened his banking app. The truth that unfolded on the screen made my blood boil. The $5,000 in our joint savings account money we had specifically set aside for emergency baby expenses had been completely drained 3 days prior. I quickly checked the transaction history. A $2,000 Zelle transfer had been sent straight to Chloe's account with the memo, "Hospital bill copay. Use this for now." A significant chunk of the remaining money was used as a non-refundable deposit for the country club. The rest, I assumed, he kept as cash for himself. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached, my fingernails digging into my palms. He was truly the lowest of the low. He had stolen the money his wife had painstakingly saved to pay for his mistress's delivery, and then used the rest to fund a lavish party to stroke his own ego. I quietly took screenshots of the transactions and emailed them to my secret account. Everything was crystal clear now. This upcoming party wasn't for Lily. It was Ethan's twisted way of celebrating the birth of his child with his mistress, disguised as an event for his legitimate daughter. It was a blatant, arrogant insult to me and my baby. But Ethan had vastly underestimated me. He thought I was just a docile, exhausted new mom who would nod and smile for the cameras. He had no idea that this ostentatious party he was so carefully orchestrating would become the exact stage where I would detonate his life. I placed his phone back on the nightstand and gently adjusted Lily's swaddle. I promised him, silently, that I would give him a party he would never, ever forget. The day of the party finally arrived. My mother was busy from early in the morning, getting her granddaughter dressed in a beautiful pink tulle dress. I didn't want to show up looking like a tired, defeated woman. I opened my closet and pulled out the most stunning ruby red cocktail dress I owned, one I had bought before my pregnancy. The tailored fit accentuated my features and cleverly flattered my postpartum figure. I sat at my vanity, applied a flawless layer of makeup, and finished with a bold, classic red lipstick. I styled my hair in an elegant updo, projecting absolute confidence. When I walked into the living room, my mother looked at me with a mixture of surprise and immense pride, telling me motherhood made me look even more radiant. Ethan, who was pacing around checking the guest list, literally stopped mid-sentence. He came over, wrapped his arm around my waist, and showered me with compliments. I accepted his flattery with a serene, practiced smile. At exactly 11:00 a.m., our family arrived at the venue. The private hall was breathtaking, decorated with elaborate balloon arches, fresh floral centerpieces, and a tasteful gold banner reading, "Welcome to the world, Lily." Guests began to pour in, filling the large round tables. Laughter and the clinking of champagne flutes created a lively, celebratory atmosphere. My in-laws were glowing, greeting guests at the door. My mother-in-law carried Lily around, proudly showing off her granddaughter to everyone. Ethan's aunt came over, cooing at Lily. "Oh, look at those eyes. She's the spitting image of Ethan. She's so healthy. Clara, you've done an amazing job. You two are so blessed." The congratulations were endless. Everyone praised Ethan, calling him a successful provider who went all out for his family. They told me I had hit the jackpot with such a devoted, hard-working husband. I sat at the center table, moving a forkful of salad around my plate, tasting absolutely nothing. I was seated in the middle of a perfect theatrical production. From my two-faced husband playing the charming host, to the oblivious relatives toasting to a lie, no one knew the rotting truth beneath the surface. I took a sip of water and scanned the room. The room was loud, but my mind was a fortress of silence. It was the absolute tranquility of a sniper lining up a shot. Inside, my designer handbag resting on my lap was a thick, meticulously organized folder. Every document, every photo, every bank statement was printed in full color. Today, right here under these chandeliers, surrounded by his family, friends, and the firm partners he so desperately wanted to impress, I was going to rip off his mask. I was going to make sure everyone saw the real man who stole from his own daughter to fund his affair. My calmness was the quiet before a catastrophic storm. As the lunch service wound down, guests were finishing their entrees and the room buzzed with happy chatter. Suddenly, Ethan stood up. He grabbed his champagne flute and tapped it lightly with a knife. The room quieted down, and all eyes turned to him. Ethan cleared his throat and launched into a smooth, practiced speech. He thanked everyone for taking time out of their busy weekends to celebrate with them. He spoke about the long hours at the firm and his dedication to providing for his family. Then, turning to me with a look of pure adoration, his voice thickened with faux emotion. "But today, the person I want to thank the most is my beautiful wife, Clara. She carried our child for 9 months and gave us this perfect, healthy daughter. I will never forget her strength and sacrifice. I'm just a regular guy, and it's because of her support that I've built a successful career and a loving home. This party isn't just to welcome Lily, it's to honor the most amazing woman I know. The room erupted in applause. My in-laws beamed with pride, and several of Ethan's colleagues raised their glasses in admiration. Ethan raised his flute high, proposed a toast to family, and took a drink amidst the cheers. The performance was a masterpiece. If I hadn't known what he really was, I would have cried. As the applause faded, Ethan sat back down next to me. The charismatic smile vanished instantly. He leaned in close, putting his mouth near my ear so only I could hear, and whispered urgently, "Hey, Clara, when the party's over, you need to put the final bill on your credit card. My corporate card is locked for the month, and my personal accounts are tapped out. I used all my cash on the floral deposits and tipping the event staff. It's all our money anyway, right? Please just handle the check." Hearing his words, a faint smile touched my lips. It was a polite smile, but behind my eyes, there was nothing but pure, unadulterated contempt. I turned to look at him, my expression perfectly serene, and nodded slightly. "Sure, I'll take care of it. Go mingle with the partners." Seeing me agree so easily, Ethan let out an audible sigh of relief. He patted my knee affectionately, stood up, and immediately walked over to the VIP table to laugh and shake hands with his bosses. Watching him walk away, my disgust hit its absolute peak. What a pathetic, spineless move. He drained our joint savings, wired $2,000 to his mistress for her hospital copay, blew the rest on a deposit for a vanity party, and then at the very last second tried to stick his wife with the final tab so he wouldn't look broke. Everything had gone exactly according to his script. But he misread the lead actress. My paycheck was meant for Lily's college fund, not to finance a cheater's fragile ego. I quietly unzipped my handbag and rested my hand on the manila folder. The waiter would be bringing the check soon. It was time for the curtain to drop. Around 1:30 p.m., the party was winding down. People were eating cake and drinking coffee. The volume in the room had settled into a comfortable hum. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the banquet manager, a young man in a crisp suit, walking toward our center table, carrying a black leather check presenter. He walked straight up to where I was sitting with my in-laws. He smiled politely. "I hope everything was to your satisfaction today. Here is the final bill for the catering, open bar, and service fees. The total is $2,500. Whenever you're ready, I can process the payment." The manager placed the leather folder squarely on the table between me and Ethan. My in-laws paused their conversation. Ethan, trying to play it cool, nudged my side with his elbow and shot me a pointed look, gesturing toward my purse with his eyes. But I didn't move a muscle. I sat perfectly straight, my hands folded elegantly on the table, my face a mask of total calm. When I didn't reach for my purse, Ethan started to panic. People at the adjacent tables were glancing over. He leaned in, his jaw tight, and hissed through his teeth. "What are you doing? Get your card out. People are staring. Just pay it. I'll Venmo you the money later." I turned my head slowly and locked eyes with him. The dutiful, patient wife was gone. In her place was a woman looking at a cockroach. I picked up the black leather folder and pushed it firmly into Ethan's chest. Then, I stood up. I smoothed my red dress, took a deep breath, and let my voice ring out loud, clear, and sharp enough to cut through the chatter of the entire room. "You can get the check, Ethan. After all, it's not for my baby's party, is it?" The room went dead silent. The clinking of coffee cups stopped instantly. The soft background music suddenly sounded glaringly loud. My in-laws stared at me in absolute shock. The whispers among the relatives ceased. Everyone knew that the baby sleeping in the bassinet was my daughter. My mother had literally carried her into the venue. Yet here I was, publicly declaring that this party was not for her. Ethan's jaw dropped. The color completely drained from his face, leaving him looking sickly and pale. He grabbed my wrist, trying to pull me back into my chair, stammering frantically to do damage control. "Clara, what are you talking about? Did you drink too much champagne? Stop making a scene. Lily is right there." "Are you crazy?" "Everyone, I am so sorry. My wife hasn't been sleeping well. She's just exhausted and confused." I ripped my arm out of his grasp. "I'm not crazy, and I haven't had a drop to drink." Under the horrified gaze of 100 guests, I flipped the script. I pointed a finger directly at the face of the husband of the year and articulated every word with lethal precision. Lily is my daughter, but this party is a fraud. This $2,500 gala is a cover-up to celebrate the baby you're having with your college ex-girlfriend. You used the money you stole from our daughter's emergency fund to pay for it. Just 3 days ago, you wired your mistress $2,000 for her hospital bills. You threw this extravagant party to hide your own garbage, and now you're trying to force me to pay the balance for it? That baby isn't mine, so I have absolutely zero obligation to pay this bill. Every word struck the room like a bomb going off. The joyful banquet hall had instantly transformed into a brutal tribunal. The play was over, and the lights were shining directly on the filth. The silence was suffocating. My father-in-law slammed his fist onto the table, making the silverware jump. His face was purple. "Ethan! What the hell is your wife talking about? An affair? Another baby? Are you out of your mind?" My mother-in-law looked like she was going to faint. She gripped the edge of the table, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, desperately trying to save their family's dignity. "Clara, honey, please calm down. You must have misunderstood. Ethan worked so hard for you. When would he have time for an affair? You can't just ruin his reputation in front of his bosses without proof." I completely understood her reaction. No mother wants to believe her golden boy is a monster, but I had come prepared for war. I unzipped my handbag, pulled out the thick, heavy manila folder, and slammed it down onto the center of the table. The loud thwack echoed in the silent room. "You want proof, Helen? I printed it all right here. From the text messages about their prenatal appointments to the bank statements of every single wire transfer." I turned my back to Ethan and addressed the entire room, making sure his bosses, his family, and my parents heard every word. 3 months ago, while I was bedridden with morning sickness, Ethan reconnected with his college ex, Chloe. She was recently divorced, pregnant by another man, and broke. Ethan decided to play the hero. He promised to raise her child and take care of her. I flipped open the folder to the second page. Here are the bank records. In 3 months, he secretly funneled $20,000 to her. That was our family's money. Money I worked hard for. I pointed to a page highlighted in bright yellow. On page 5, you can read the text where he tells her she is the love of his life, and that I am just a cold, work-obsessed obstacle he needs to get rid of. And the grand finale. 3 days ago, he wiped out our $5,000 joint savings account money meant for Lily to pay for his mistress's hospital delivery, using the leftover cash to book this venue so he could play the perfect family man today. My father-in-law snatched the folder with shaking hands. His eyes darted over the cruel text messages and the undeniable bank statements. The rage in his eyes was terrifying. He picked up his water glass and hurled it at the floor, shattering it into pieces. He pointed a trembling finger at Ethan and roared, "You worthless piece of shit! I have no son. How dare you do this to your family? You disgust me." My mother-in-law broke down completely, burying her face in her hands and sobbing hysterically over the table. The very son she had bragged about was a total fraud. The room erupted into shocked whispers. Ethan's colleagues, who had just toasted to his honor, were staring at him with undisguised disgust. My father, who had been sitting quietly at the adjacent table, slowly stood up. The old man's face was etched with pain for me, but his posture was rigid and imposing. He walked over, put a protective hand on my shoulder, and looked my father-in-law dead in the eye. His voice was gravelly and absolute. "I think everything is clear here. My daughter did not marry into your family to be treated like garbage. Since things have come to this, we are leaving. My daughter is filing for divorce, and we are taking our granddaughter home." I looked at my dad, my eyes burning, but I refused to let a single tear fall. I had done what I came to do. The truth was out, and the event had officially ended in absolute ruin for Ethan. My mom swiftly packed up the diaper bag and secured Lily in her car seat. My dad led the way, parting the crowd of stunned guests. I grabbed my purse, turned on my heel, and followed my parents out, leaving Ethan standing in the epicenter of the disaster he had created. As soon as we stepped out the heavy glass doors of the country club, frantic footsteps echoed behind us. Ethan came sprinting out into the driveway. Sweat was pouring down his pale, terrified face. He lunged forward to grab my arm, but my dad shoved him back hard. "Back off! Don't you dare touch her! Get out of the way before I call the cops!" Ignoring my dad's threat, Ethan collapsed to his knees right there on the concrete driveway. The polished, arrogant project manager from 20 minutes ago was gone. He was a weeping, pathetic mess. He clasped his hands together and begged, his voice cracking. "Clara, please. Hit me. Scream at me. Take all the money. Just please don't divorce me. I messed up. I lost my mind. She manipulated me. I'll block her right now. I'll do whatever you want. We have a 3-year history. We have Lily. Just give me one more chance. Please." I stopped walking and looked down at the man groveling on the pavement. I felt no pity. I felt no rage. I felt absolutely nothing. I stepped closer to him and spoke in a voice devoid of any warmth. "A chance? What right do you have to ask for a chance? Your biggest crime wasn't sleeping with your ex or spending money on someone else's kid. Your biggest crime was treating me like a prop. You used me as a shield to hide your affair. You funded your mistress with my money, and you used my pregnancy as a PR stunt to make yourself look like a good man. You never respected me. The only person you have ever loved is yourself." Ethan opened his mouth to cry out another excuse, but I held up my hand, silencing him. "The show is over, Ethan. I'm filing the divorce papers tomorrow morning. You better get a good lawyer to figure out how you're going to pay me back the 20 grand you stole. Goodbye." I turned my back, walked over to the SUV my dad had pulled up, and got into the back seat next to my mom and Lily. As the car drove down the long driveway, I looked out the window. The image of Ethan kneeling alone on the concrete grew smaller and smaller until he disappeared entirely. I let out a long, deep breath. A massive weight had been lifted off my chest. The road ahead of me as a single mother would be tough, but at least I was no longer sharing my bed with a liar. My dad drove us straight to my parents' single-story house in the quiet suburbs. Driving past the familiar oak trees and stepping onto the front porch, I finally felt safe. My dad carried my bags into my old childhood bedroom, while my mom immediately started warming up a bottle for Lily. Surrounded by the unconditional love of my parents, the adrenaline finally crashed, and the exhaustion of the day settled deep into my bones. The first couple of weeks were a blur of diapers, feedings, and quiet days. But at night, when the house was completely silent, reality would hit me. I had been strong when I ripped off his mask, but I was still human. Laying alone in the dark next to my sleeping baby, a hollow emptiness would grip my chest. I suffered from terrible insomnia. Indivlicanis's inodat. I'd stare at the ceiling, haunted by memories, cooking dinner together, picking out paint colors for the condo. Every hope I ever had for a normal family had been brutally destroyed. I didn't cry. My tears had dried up the day I unlocked that MacBook. But my body took the toll. I lost my appetite. Even when my mom cooked my favorite comfort foods, I could barely manage a few bites before putting my fork down. I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Seeing my pale face and the dark circles under my eyes, my parents were heartbroken. My mom would cry quietly on the back porch at night, though she always put on a brave, cheerful face when she was with me. One early morning, I walked out to the kitchen to make a bottle and saw my dad in the backyard, fixing an old wooden trellis. He saw me, put down his hammer, and walked over. His voice was gentle but firm. "Clara, you have to stand up where you fell. Throwing away a bad husband is not the end of your life. Look at Lily. That little girl needs a strong, healthy mother. Your mom and I aren't telling you to just get over it. But you have to start taking care of yourself first." Looking at Lily cooing happily in her bassinet, and hearing my dad's words, a switch flipped in my head. He was right. I couldn't let Ethan's betrayal ruin the future for me and my daughter. Emptiness couldn't be cured by resentment. It could only be cured by action. From that day on, I forced myself into a strict routine. Every morning at 5:00 a.m., while Lily was still asleep, I put on my running shoes and jogged for 30 minutes through the suburban neighborhood. The crisp morning air and the physical exertion helped flush the toxic thoughts from my brain. I bought a journal and started writing down my feelings, emptying the dark residue from my mind onto paper. I bought an adult coloring book and filled it in during my downtime. Focusing on the bright colors brought my anxiety down. Healing wasn't instantaneous. There were days when the anger flared back up, but I no longer let myself drown in it. I treated the marriage as a painful but necessary lesson. Thanks to my parents' endless support and my daughter's smile, I pulled myself out of the depression, ready to officially close the darkest chapter of my life. Miss Davis was ruthless and efficient. 2 weeks later, the divorce filings were complete. Because of the irrefutable evidence I had gathered, Ethan's lawyer had absolutely zero leverage. He couldn't fight for custody of Lily. We agreed to sell the condo and split the equity 50-50. The $20,000 he had funneled to Chloe was legally categorized as dissipation of marital assets, and the judge ordered him to pay me my $10,000 share from his half of the house sale. On a bright Wednesday morning, I got a call from Miss Davis's office to come in and sign the final settlement papers. I ironed a sharp teal blouse and put on a pair of tailored black slacks. Walking out of the house, the autumn sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, a stark contrast to the rainy day this nightmare began. When I opened the door to the law office, Ethan was already sitting on the leather sofa in the waiting room. In less than 2 months, his polished, corporate Boy Scout image had completely disintegrated. He had lost weight, his eyes were sunken with dark bags, and he hadn't shaved in days. His dress shirt was wrinkled and untucked. Looking at him, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt a fleeting sense of pity. A man who sacrificed everything for his own ego had ultimately destroyed his own life. Seeing me, Ethan jumped to his feet. He nervously wrung his hands. "Hey. How have you and Lily been?" "Lily is fine," I replied curtly, walking past him and taking a seat at the far end of the conference table. "We're doing well. You don't need to worry about us." Miss Davis walked in, placing the thick settlement binder on the glass table. She instructed us to read through the sections regarding asset division, child support, and visitation schedules one last time before signing. The room was dead silent except for the flipping of pages. I read every single clause. Everything was exactly as I had demanded. I pulled a pen from my purse and signed my name on the dotted line with swift, decisive strokes. When the binder was passed to Ethan, his hand was visibly shaking. He stared at me for a long time, his eyes swimming with regret and utter defeat. But seeing my cold, unyielding expression, he knew it was over. He lowered his head and signed the papers, sealing his fate. As Miss Davis collected the documents, Ethan looked up at me, his voice barely a whisper. "Clara, the agreement says I pay child support and get visitation. Can I come see Lily on Sunday afternoons? I'm still her dad." I paused at the door and looked back at my ex-husband. I wasn't going to raise my daughter in an environment of toxic revenge. I gave him a straightforward answer. "Yes. You can come see her on Sundays, but you need to text me beforehand and be on time. I won't have Lily's schedule disrupted." With that, I opened the door and walked out. The warm autumn sun washed over my face. The heavy glass door clicking shut behind me marked the permanent end of my 3-year mistake. The legal battle was over. I was a free woman, a single mother ready to take on whatever came next. The months following the divorce were busy, but profoundly peaceful. Between the payout from selling the condo and the $10,000 Ethan was forced to return, I had a solid financial cushion. I put half of it into a $529 college savings plan for Lily and used the rest to supplement my income. As my maternity leave ended, I spoke with my director and requested a hybrid work arrangement. Given my track record, the company agreed to let me work from home 4 days a week, only requiring me to come into the office on Monday mornings. This allowed me to keep my career on track while being present for my baby. Being a single working mom required intense discipline. I kept up my 5:00 a.m. runs. By 7:00 a.m., Lily would wake up, and the house would fill with her happy babbling. My parents were my village. They took turns watching her while I locked myself in the home office to work. I felt a deep, grounding sense of family love that I had never felt while living with Ethan. On weekend afternoons, I would sit on the back porch and paint watercolors. I painted the oak trees, the suburban sunsets, and my dad's smiling face. With every brushstroke, the wounds in my heart healed a little more. I realized that losing a terrible husband didn't mean my life was over. My life was actually bigger, brighter, and infinitely more peaceful without him. My hard work paid off. At the end of the year, my department had a record quarter, and I was promoted to team lead with a substantial bonus. The day I got the promotion, I treated myself to a nice dinner out and bought a few new dresses. Looking in the mirror, I saw a confident, successful woman in her 30s. The shadow of the betrayed, exhausted wife was completely gone. Life moved forward smoothly. Then, one freezing winter night, I had just put Lily to sleep, and sat down on the couch with a cup of chamomile tea to watch Netflix. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was an iMessage from an unknown number. After the divorce, I had blocked Ethan's family and friends entirely, keeping only Ethan unblocked for logistics regarding Lily. I opened the text. After the first sentence, I knew exactly who it was. Clara, hi, how are you? It's Chloe. I know you blocked my real number, so I'm messaging you from a burner app. Please don't delete this right away. My life is a living hell right now. My son is a few months old, but Ethan abandoned us. He blamed me for everything, saying I ruined his career and his marriage. He's a monster. He packed his bags and vanished. He left me and my baby in this tiny studio apartment with zero money. I regret everything so much. I guess karma is real. I read the words on the screen with zero emotion. The mistress's tragic downfall didn't move me. If I had received this text 2 years ago, I might have felt a rush of vindictive pleasure. But now? My heart was so entirely detached from their drama that reading this felt like reading a spam email. I took a sip of my tea. Karma was indeed real. Ethan was a narcissist who only cared about himself. The man who threw his pregnant wife under the bus for a fantasy was the exact same man who would abandon that fantasy the second it became a burden. Chloe had chosen to rely on a married man to fund her life, and that dependency became her trap. They deserved each other, and their miserable ending was entirely their own doing. I had no desire to reply, gloat, or offer advice. The ultimate punishment for people who betray you isn't anger, it's total apathy. I hit the delete button, erasing her message permanently, and blocked the burner number. I set my phone down, checked the baby monitor, and pulled a blanket over my legs. Outside, the winter wind howled against the windows, but inside, I was perfectly warm and safe. I had successfully evicted those people from my mind for good. Life is way too short to spend time watching toxic people ruin their own lives. My only job was to live mine beautifully. Time flew by. It's been 2 years since I walked out of that law office with my divorce papers. This spring brought another major milestone. Thanks to my promotions and careful budgeting, I bought a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a great school district. It had hardwood floors, walls painted a warm cream color, and a balcony where I kept potted succulents. The deed was in my name only. It was a safe, happy home I had built entirely on my own for my daughter. Lily is now 2 years old, running around the living room and talking in endless, hilarious sentences. My parents visit often, bringing Tupperware full of food and spoiling their granddaughter. The condo is constantly filled with laughter. At 3:00 p.m. sharp on a Sunday, the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel and opened the door. Ethan stood in the hallway, holding a set of wooden building blocks. For 2 years, he had never missed his Sunday visitation. Time had not been kind to him. While the last 2 years had brought me peace and health, Ethan looked like a man who had aged a decade. His hair was thinning and heavily grayed at the temples. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit or a crisp button-down. He wore a faded, generic winter jacket and scuffed shoes. Word through the grapevine was that the scandal at the country club had ruined his reputation at the firm, stalling his career entirely. I opened the door wider and spoke politely. "Come in. Lily is in the living room playing." Ethan walked in quietly, taking off his shoes at the door. He walked over to Lily, sat cross-legged on the rug, and opened the blocks. Lily, sweet and outgoing, happily accepted the toys and started building a tower. Ethan watched his daughter with a look of profound, crushing regret. As I set a glass of ice water on the coffee table for him, he looked up at me, his voice raspy. "Clara, the new place looks great. I wanted to say thank you. For the last 2 years, you had every right to cut me out completely, to teach Lily to hate me for what I did, but you didn't. You let me be in her life. I'm incredibly grateful for your grace." I looked down at him, my expression perfectly calm, and answered honestly. "It's not about grace, Ethan. It's about doing what's right for my daughter's psychological well-being. Lily is innocent. She deserves to know she has a father who shows up for her. I would never poison her mind because of our adult failures. As long as you pay your child support and treat her with love, you can see her. But whatever was between you and me, that died a long time ago." Ethan lowered his eyes, swallowing hard, unable to say another word. He spent an hour building towers with Lily, gave her a hug, and quietly let himself out. As the elevator doors closed behind him, I shut my front door and locked the deadbolt. I walked back into the living room and scooped Lily up into my arms. She wrapped her tiny arms around my neck and planted a sloppy kiss on my cheek. The warm, late afternoon sun poured through the balcony glass, filling the room with golden light. Holding my daughter, I looked out over the suburban skyline, thinking back on the tears, the betrayal, and the brutal fight to get here. A genuine, radiant smile spread across my face. I realized the greatest truth. A happy, complete family doesn't require a husband. Real happiness comes from having the courage to cut out the cancer that's hurting you, and the strength to stand on your own 2 feet. My past life felt like a stressful, suffocating nightmare, but I had finally woken up. And the life I was living now was free, dignified, and more beautiful than I had ever imagined.
Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you, I don't need what's left undone. Sometimes losing who once broke you is how healing has begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone again. I'm freezing, I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile, Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here, maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.